Hello, I'm Catherine Cuellar for the City of Dallas. Welcome to this special program where we're diving into Women's History Month in the City of Dallas. My guest is Christy Netterman. She's spent 8 years with the City of Dallas and is an authority on the history of contributions to women's history, including those by women in our organization and in our community. Thanks for being here, Christy.
Thank you.
So first, tell us a little bit about the Municipal Archives and what your job as an archivist is.
Well, Catherine, thanks for having me first. The Municipal Archives, we're located in City Hall. There are two of us. This is City Archivist John Slate and myself. And we protect and preserve the history of the governmental side of Dallas. So your park boards, your any departmentals, your city council, anything like that that has to do with the governmental history of the City of Dallas. So we have, city council minutes back to the 1870s that are handwritten in beautiful script, and up to ones now that are, typed and scanned in everywhere. We are open to the public for any kind of research they'd like to do, so they can reach out on our website and find out how to reach us. No matter who you are, we're always open for research. We are also we're on the portal to Texas history, so you can do some of your own research, from the comfort of your sofa. And we want to help you do your research. We want to help preserve the history and make it available. And that's the main thing that we do, is the, historically pertinent things that happen in Dallas government. So we want to mark that and keep that for future researchers.
And that website is dallas.gov?
We are part of the City Secretary's office. So if you go to the main City Hall page, look for the City Secretary Department, and then you'll find the Municipal Archives under that. And
the Dallas Municipal Archives are also on social media?
Yes, we are. We are on Facebook. Yes.
Great.
And we have a Friends group as well, the Friends of the Dallas Municipal Archives, and they help us do fundraising. And we have a few events throughout the year, so they're a really good support organization for us.
Terrific. So you mentioned the Municipal Archives are particularly about the history of the government side of the City of Dallas. Who are some of the most notable women in Dallas government?
Well, we can talk about maybe some of the firsts, the women that were first in line to do some of that. Park board member in 1929, Laura Urey Smith was the first woman park board member, and that was really in the early days of the park board. So it's kind of interesting, and the park board seems to, we women want our parks and we want places for children to meet and be with, so it makes sense that they've been involved with the parks from very early on.
Terrific.
The first council member was Calvert Collins, and this was in the 50s, so 1957 to 1961, I believe. And her daughter is Calvert Collins Bratton herself, and she has been on the park board as well, and is currently the Chief Relationship Officer for the Community Foundation of Texas. So she's participating in Dallas herself. Let's see, next in line we have the first Latina council member whose name we all may recognize, which is Anita Martinez, and she was there from 1969 to 1973. And let's see, Lucy Patterson was next in line. She was a force to be reckoned with. She was the first black council member, female, in the late 70s, and she really kind of did it all. She did a lot on the local, the state, and the national stage. She was on commissions for both President Carter and President Reagan. So she got around, and she was a lot of influence for public welfare and just social work in general. She spent a lot of her effort as a social worker, and then furthering that cause and the information that you needed to know to help families that needed assistance.
Great.
See, after that we have a lesser known commission because it no longer exists, but Martha Diffie was on the Radio Commission, which was a support for WRR, radio station WRR right next door to us, and she was there in the late 70s, the commission didn't last much longer than that, but she was the first female on the radio commission.
And the city owns WRR to this day.
To this day, yes. Wonderful 101.1.
And you're writing a book about WRR, so for fans of local history, there will be more history from a history conservator coming soon. I look forward to reading it. So we've talked about some of our first women on boards and commissions. How about some of the first women to serve in the highest of both elected and appointed offices?
Well, we've had a few women that were mayors. The first one was in 1976, and that was Adeline Harrison, and she was appointed mayor for 3 months to complete the term of Wes Wise, who had resigned. Then a few years later, in 1987, we have Annette Strauss, and I think she's probably she's a very well-known figure around Dallas, and she really was mayor from 1987 to 1991. She kind of broke the mold of, being a quote socialite and moved herself into government. But she was, as this being on all of these women's committees and things, if you don't know that much about Dallas, women's committees were running everything. They have always been behind the scenes, or maybe not so behind the scenes, but the women's organizations get things done around here. And certainly through, through most of the 1900s and even into this decade, they're getting a lot of things done. So she took all of that expertise and experience and relationship building and moved it into being the mayor. And she was really a kind of a calming force through a difficult economic time for the city. And there are lots of things going on behind the scenes we won't get to today, but she's really a calming force that knew how to build consensus and take care of things that way, and she's still very well cared for today, I think.
So that was the first elected woman mayor.
Yes.
And then the first highest appointed police chief.
That would be Renee Hall, who was just here from 2017 to 2020. And
of course, we are a city manager form of government, so we've also had some appointed women city managers.
Well, Jan Hart Black was the first female city manager, and she was another one who was really concerned with building networks, getting a consensus, and taking all the information and then making decisions. She was president of the Greater Dallas Chamber of Commerce, and again made a lot of impact on a lot of different groups, and really spent her career in civic organizations and working for the people that put her in place.
Still here, still serving. I know.
Absolutely.
Just in my time with the city, she's been a senior affairs appointed commissioner.
Right. Still working all of that.
So why is it important to take time to recognize these women who have had incredible influence both within our city government and in our community through their organizational leadership?
Well, Catherine, I think that's probably a question just to, we want to recognize anybody who's doing strong things and important things, and certainly history shows that we always do it for the men. And it's about time that we really start including these women who have given their lives to whatever it was, be it in a governmental way or a social way, to bettering their communities. And and I think as we get more accustomed to this now, little girls want to see this, that mom is doing that, or their grandmother or their teacher or whomever, so they have their own role models to really look forward to and say, hey, if she can do that, so can I. And why can't I go be the mayor, or why can't I be the governor? Or even on smaller scales, why can't I run the PTA? Something like that. It doesn't always have to be a big footprint, but it's your own footprint, and it's good for us to have role models, even if you never meet them.
Who are some of the other notable women in terms of representation within our city who might have not been the first or the highest, but still have played key roles?
Well, I think probably one of the first women of Dallas would definitely be a woman called Sarah Cockrell. She was early 1850s and 60s here. She was a stalwart pioneer woman out here. Her husband was Alexander Cockrell, and they were amassing a good amount of money. She was working very hard behind the scenes for her husband, who was illiterate, but she took care of all the business side and made sure that he was always respected and looked after and looked up to in business, and he unfortunately was murdered. Yes, that's another story. But she then really took over the reins for the company, kind of behind her son. So she pushed them to the front, and they were adults at the time. So she really let them kind of be the face of the companies and things. But she and Alexander built the first bridge across the Trinity. It was a wooden one, and then after his death, she built the first steel one. So this was obviously massively important for connecting us to what was becoming Oak Cliff, the settlement of Hoard's Ridge, and then Oak Cliff, and then just south of the Trinity into the rest of Texas. So this is a big deal to have a metal bridge that you knew was going to survive anything that the Trinity was doing at the time. And it was a toll bridge, which she owned for 10 years, and then she sold it to the city of Dallas.
What a feat of engineering, and that's the same Cockrell, I presume, that the town of Cockrell Hill is named for?
It's the same family. Yes, it's the same family. And she is noted as really Dallas's first millionaire, not even Dallas's first female millionaire, but Dallas's first millionaire. So she was heavily involved with the early goings-on of Dallas and helping it to continue its growth and stay on the map. She ran hotels. She was a busy woman doing it all behind the scenes and maintaining that early, that Victorian sense of propriety for women, and that she wouldn't be out in public doing something as, naughty as running a business. But she was still out there doing it all.
Amazing.
Yes.
Well, these are the treasures we can find in the Dallas Archives, Dallas Municipal Archives.
Municipal Archives,
in the
yes.
Secretary's office.
And then I would say one last woman that probably is a pretty well-known name around Dallas is a woman called Juanita Craft. She was not the first Black council member who was a female, but she made her mark pretty much everywhere she went. She was highly involved in city matters and civil rights. And one of her, to a lot of people, this is a well-known thing, but this may be some new information to others. In 1855, well, let me back up. The State Fair of Texas had been segregated its entire time, and they would have what they would call, a Negro Day or Negro Achievement Day, and there would be 1 or 2 days during the fair where Black people could go to the fair, and the rest of the time they weren't allowed into their own state fair in their own town. In 1955, Juanita decides that she's not having it, and she gets together with a lot of youth groups around, and they picket in front of the state fair, and they're saying it's not Negro Achievement Day, it's not Negro Day, it's Negro Appeasement Day. And so they've got some pretty good picket signs that they're walking around with, and she really got involved with the state fair and making it, I think at first maybe it was a little acrimonious, but she ultimately makes some good relationship with the folks running the state fair, and the fair does finally become fully integrated. Unfortunately, it takes until the 1960s for this to happen.
Well, and because of her community leadership in the civil rights local community and activity, her home, now owned by the city of Dallas,
yes,
run by our Office of Arts and Culture, is
yes,
also recently renovated with help from the Junior League of Dallas, back to those women-led
Absolutely,
organizations that run
absolutely.
our community. And our Dallas residents can see some of the artifacts from Juanita Craft's leadership on display at the Office of Arts and Culture Juanita Craft House.
Right, and it's a small little house over, actually not too far from where we are here in Fair Park.
Not too far from the State Fair that she integrated.
And she did all of this, all of this organization from, her home, and as is so often when you're behind the scenes on something, it all takes place from your living room or your kitchen. Lots of time in the kitchen, I'm sure, because that's where you want to eat, and we like meetings if we can eat, right?
Food is love in Dallas, for sure.
That's right.
And the kitchen cabinet has two meanings, because there's the one that advises and the one that provides the food.
Exactly. But yes, so she, let's see, so some of the signs were, like I said, Negro Appeasement Day, don't sell your pride for a segregated ride, so she's serious about what she's trying to do for people of her own color, for other people of color in Dallas, and then just the city in general, because it's, we needed that. And so the fair, it was 1967 when they finally completely desegregated the fair.
One of the things that I learned about Juanita Craft from the reopening of her newly renovated home was her talk about chosen family, and how she didn't have her own children, so the whole city of Dallas became her family.
They did. Yes, she worked a lot with the youth groups, and just teaching them that, kind of like your original question of why does this matter, that it doesn't matter what color you are, what your gender is, you can do all of these things. And so she was a significant role model for a lot of young kids.
Well, there's lots of history to be explored through our Office of Arts and Culture at the Juanita Craft Civil Rights House, through our Park and Recreation Department at Dallas Heritage Village, and here in Fair Park at the Hall of State, through our Dallas Public Libraries. There are historic collections.
That's right. In addition, so we are the Municipal Library, and as I said, we do the governmental history of Dallas. But the Dallas Public Library on the 7th floor in downtown is another archives, and they have a massive collection as well. More centered around the social history of Dallas, but their archive existed before ours, so they have some of the earlier governmental and city council papers for folks like that as well. So they're a really good source for any research, as well as we are.
For those artifacts, you can also go to the Portal to Texas History,
yes,
which is through University of North Texas.
Yes, I don't know the website right off the top of my head, but if you type in Portal to Texas History on your browser, you will get the portal, and that is a collection from over 400 or 500 institutions across the state, governments, historical societies, museums, universities, newspapers. If you think of it, it's probably there, of all kinds of Texas history, from photos and reports to newspapers. So it is a really, really good resource, no matter where you live in Texas or even outside of Texas. If you want to find out more about Texas history, you can really get lost down there. And it is a great source for students doing papers, or if you're whatever research you're doing, it's a fantastic resource.
Well, thank you, Christy, for your presence and for your work to preserve and to share this history and these amazing stories. And you can check dallas.gov/calendar for women's history events throughout the month, and you can go to dallas.gov and visit the city secretary's office to tap into the Dallas Municipal Archives. Happy Women's History Month. Thanks for being here.